Welcome to the What's Up Already podcast. We fashion ourselves television judge and jury. What's so fucking funny? My name is JJ Crowder. I'm here with my co-host, Mattson Hyder.
Better red than dead.
And Alec Burgess.
Let's get it.
Oh, shit. I just want to get it out there. He's not here yet, but he better be. I hate you, Charles. I hate you. This suit is so hot, and you can't even see most of it. Like it's hot.
JJ, why don't you tell our listeners why you're in a wizard getup today?
Yeah, a few episodes back, we were doing lives, and Charles, our Patreon, and he's our patron, he paying customer, got on and said that he wanted me to dress up for the finale. So here we are. I am a wizard for the finale. Just call me Fatagas the Brown. Yeah, dude, seriously, like, you know how hard it is for fat kids to find costumes? It doesn't work. Like, I'd show you, but I'm not standing up. So, but yeah, it doesn't fit very well. But hey, it's there, you know? So I did what I said I was going to do. And yeah, it's going to be a miserable hour. Let's make this the shortest episode we've ever had of our live show. With that, let's talk. We're here to talk about Rings of Power. And then later on, we'll talk about the Charles says the great and powerful kahuna. No staff, dude. It was hard enough finding this shit that fit my ass. So no, there's no staff. This was a difficult find, and I am really hot. So yeah, but thanks for that, Charles. Yeah, so let's talk Rings of Power. The finale, it's done. It's over. Spoilers inbound. So if you haven't seen it, yikes. Now's the time to not listen any further. But I have issues, but overall, I enjoyed it. I have some concerns. I don't want to say I have issues. I want to say I have concerns. That's what I have. But before we get into those, let's talk about what the episode did well. I thought it was a great culmination of what we've seen over the last 7 episodes. I thought there was a little bit of everything. We've set up season 2 in a lot of different ways, in some really interesting ways, in my opinion.
There was a wizard.
There was a wizard that was introduced, and we know exactly who he is now. At least those of us that have some deep cut lore. Shut up. God, this thing's hot. They have some deep cut lore. Those of us that know that we are now dealing with Gandalf the Grey. Yeah. So that's who the stranger is. Though they did try to throw a curveball. I did laugh at Alec. He sent me a text. He's like, this is bullshit. Like 12 minutes into the episode, he's like, I don't like where this is going.
Yeah, they had me fooled with their Sauron thing. And I was like, dude, you 3 have to be the most incompetent little cronies ever.
Well, and
they were so cool and menacing.
I know.
And it turns out they're just like the 3 Stooges.
Yeah, and then they weren't. And I think the only thing about that concerned me was at the end when he like dissipates them, like you get to see them in like
moth form.
Yeah, well, not only that, but before that, you see them on the other side of the veil or whatever you want to call it, like you saw in the Peter Jackson trilogy with the ring wraiths. And so I was like, that's interesting. You'd think someone that is on that side of it could tell that, you know, he's not Sauron.
This isn't the dude you're looking for.
Yeah, like come along now.
Yeah, that part was I'm with you there.
Yeah, I mean, visually it was cool. I liked it visually. My hat's falling off. Visually it was cool, but it gave me concern for with these kids. And I guess, I mean, they were pretty incompetent because they got wrecked pretty quick and pretty easily. So I don't know. But that was like my least favorite part, was that we had this setup with these menacing characters following, and then yeah, there we are. Oh, Charles has got a great point here. He said, I thought that it couldn't be Gandalf due to the big time difference in the book. Yeah, so did we. That was my next concern is, And okay, and let me say this with concern. I get why it's Gandalf. I really do. I understand, and as a lore nerd, and I'm not even on Alec's level of lore nerd here on this particular topic, but I'm still a pretty deep lore nerd for the Lord of the Rings, and understanding that, I go, that can't be Gandalf, even on a truncated timeline. You're in the wrong age. But at the same time, I understand that they didn't write this show and they didn't produce this show only for nerds like me and Alec. Like, they have to make money. They have to get viewers. And so one way to do that is to introduce probably the most popular character in the Lord of the Rings, because he was one that carried over from Lord of the Rings to the Hobbit trilogy. No matter how you feel about that, Sir Ian McKellen is amazing, and he played Gandalf amazingly. So I do understand why they're using this well-known character and because it brings people in that wouldn't come if there wasn't some tie to people that they knew. Because as it stands, other than Galadriel, which is a very different version of Galadriel than we saw even in the trilogy, they don't know anybody. I mean, Elrond, sure, but he was in the trilogy for a minute. So it's like, you have to be careful, and you have to be able to draw people that aren't deep lore nerds like me and Alec. So
yeah, I'll say this, like, I know enough about Lord of the Rings, but I'm an very edging nerd. I don't know, for lack of a better term. Like, I wanted to get there. One of my favorite songs that came out this week is "Edging" by Blink-182.
Nice. Nice.
But I don't mind that it's Gandalf. Like, it could be someone else, but I'm just entertained. Like, I mean, the culmination of how this all came together and where we're going, like, I'm pumped. And for me, what they gave and how they set it up, that's all I'm looking for. And I know, if this was like The Way of Kings, it's a very popular book franchise. It's going to be like 7 to 10 books. If they did this in truncated timeline and change some things, would I be more pissed because I know everything? Probably. But because I don't, I'm just so happy, and I'm just excited what I'm seeing, like the twist in this episode, how we're getting to the point of a story that I do know pretty well, and the build up to it. I'm loving it. So I guess I'm more of the, if you guys are on like the super nerd scale, I'm more towards the middle, and middle me is very happy.
Yeah. Well, and I'll even say that fringe me, like deep cut nerd, is pretty happy. I just had to think. Charles had a great point that I need to segue into, and that is, this broadcast just took a huge turn. Edging?
And we know Charles is all about it with all the weird stuff we watch for him.
Yeah. Now, I will say that I do think, keeping with the edging theme, I think they might have shot their shot a little early with the whole Sauron reveal. Like, because I think they could have revealed Gandalf as the stranger as Gandalf, and still carried some. I would have liked to have seen Sauron's secret held on to a little bit longer and into season 2. Now, that's not to say that I'm poo-pooing what they've done. I think that there's still some cool things that they can do with season 2 and Sauron, but I would have liked to have seen them hold on to at least one giant secret, because right now, both of them that I was like, what's going to happen, are who is who. They're gone, and we know now what there is. So there's no more twists for the most part available. There might be some, but they're not going to be as big. But that was my only. But again, I don't mind the reveal. I don't mind how it was revealed. I don't mind the change to Halbrand versus, oh my gosh, Anatar. I'm okay with all of that, because I understand that too. It's the same principle as Gandalf. You can't just drop in an elf, this beautiful elf that's helping Celebrimbor, and not have us go, yeah, I know who that is. You know what I mean? So you have to have some of that for deep cut nerds to not go, oh, I know exactly who Sauron is. So I really liked that they made, and now that I've seen it, I went back and I was watching previous episodes, and I was like, oh man, they just hand it to us on a silver platter. I'm like, how did I miss all of the comments and things that he said and did to catch it. And we talked about it one episode, Alec. You and I were like, it could be him because of a couple of things. Like he might be doing the double trick on Galadriel wanting to stay in Numenor. But I also like the play that they've put on with kind of like the penitent Sauron, because there was a time during the Silmarillion era and the Unfinished Tales era where he talked about after Morgoth was destroyed, he didn't want to keep being that big of a dick, right? Like, so he was like, I want to, he wasn't trying to say I want to be like, you know, a great hero, but he was trying to say I'm okay not being, I just want to live a simple life. And he didn't try that hard, but there was a piece of that Tolkien talked about. So I like that.
What's Sauron's motivations? Why does he want to enslave Middle Earth and rule?
Because he wants to bring peace.
Yeah. Is in
peace through strength.
In Christianity, is he Tolkien's version of Satan?
In a way, yeah. Like him and Morgoth both. It was about, for them it's about, I can make sure that everyone lives in peace because they'll live how I tell them to.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense, because that's what I'm learning more of Sauron's backstory. I was like, okay, it seems like this is what Tolkien is trying to reference, and sounds like the nerds agree.
Yeah.
And JJ, I just want to say, everything you said, I just totally couldn't listen because you're wearing a wizard hat. So every time you move it, the brim flaps a little bit. And Charles, yes, there's probably a good chance that we'll have a TikTok video on edging.
Now, let's not be premature. We don't know exactly what's going to be happening on TikTok, okay?
Oh, it's the freaking line that just keeps on giving, man. I'm telling you.
So I have a question that I want to ask Alec. In terms of these 3 rings, I understand their purpose to an extent, but I know we have to get more rings. And now that Sauron is known, I'm just curious. I thought the rings and the creation was going to still kind of happen later, but then it just happened this episode. I thought I'm curious now, how do we think we're getting the human king rings and such? Because I feel like the cat's kind of out of the bag.
It's a little bit. So Sauron goes and makes the rings kind of in secret, and then goes to the men and the dwarves without the elves knowing about it, and tells them about the rings. The elves keep their rings, and they keep them out of Sauron's influence, but they don't do very much to help the other races. It's kind of like the elves are for the elves.
So, and that leads into another question. Explain to me, the elves know that Sauron could do something with these rings, but because they keep them in-house, and when you say out of his influence, how do they do that when Sauron wanted them to make these in the first place?
I think it has something to do with the fact that it was Celebrimbor. I think they do something extra with the rings, add extra layer of protection. I don't remember exactly what it is.
It the 3 where if they didn't come with the 3, because he said 1 corrupts, 2 divides, 3 provides some sort of balance. So if they didn't add that 3rd aspect, that 3rd ring, maybe it would have done what Sauron was hoping. So maybe they kind of thwarted his plans in a way. I'm
a
not
little
sure.
bit. That's pretty on point.
Yeah, and in the end, it was, like Alex said, it's my understanding too, and I don't remember the exact lore on it, but my understanding too is that because Celebrimbor made them from start to finish, there wasn't any magics that were in place that allowed them to be controlled by the One Ring. The difference between those and the 9 and the 7 is that Sauron himself makes those, and so he makes them so that they will be enslaved, or at least controlled in part by the One Ring.
So why then, he knowing that was probably going to happen, why have them and give them the suggestions to make the rings? Because if the elves disappeared, it only made his life even easier.
Well, we say a little bit in the show is he gets found out, so he's got to take a hike.
Yeah, so I guess if Galadriel didn't realize that, okay, I got it. So he kind of got, his plan was thwarted in a way. Got it. Okay.
Yeah, and he would have stayed and hung out, because the one thing about him that I like the way that the guy that plays Halbrand played it was he does have mad respect for Celebrimbor, like, because Celebrimbor is, and they kind of don't show it very well in this show. That's one issue that I've had, is Celebrimbor kind of looks like a knucklehead half the time. but I get that that's part of the storytelling. It's hard to. The scenes would be wasted if they spent showing him being as cool as he actually is. You have to take that exposition for what it's worth and understand that he is probably the greatest smith on the planet at the time. Mm-hmm. Now, Sauron has some massive skill, as did Morgoth, in their ability to smith. And they did have a mutual respect for Celebrimbor and what he was able to do. So I liked that he was like giddy school kid when he walks in. He goes, "You're Celebrimbor, oh my," and then they start working together, and he's all pumped and figuring things out together. Because that's when I've read the Silmarillion and I've read the notes and all the appendices and stuff like that. Like that's the feeling that you get, is that they really enjoyed working together before it came to light what was going on. So I really liked the way that they played that. But yeah.
And was the being found out, was that true to form in terms of what was written, like to an extent, or did they embellish that?
They took their own storytelling liberties, right? Because the Southlands isn't really a thing. So they took this story of the Southlands, this broken line of kings, for Galadriel to kind of connect the dots. In reality, or in the lore, it was just that they kind of, caught on to his idea and his plan, and he let slip a couple of things that he shouldn't have. And they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, we don't really trust you." And he had to kind of take a hike. Yeah. Get out of Dodge.
I quite like that. And that actor that plays Halloran, like he was so smooth, and you could. It's funny, JJ mentioned that you could. Once I realized, it's confirmed with I've seen of all the things that he said before, and the one that stuck out to me was Galadriel when she's like, "I've never seen a smith like wield a blade like that," or something. You're like, yeah, obviously, because that's Sauron. So yeah. Amongst other things that I'm sure he kind of said and did along the way.
What I really liked with this show, kind of seeing everything go back, is how much, and it's kind of mentioned, but how much Galadriel projected her own kind of hate, thoughts, feelings onto Halbrand as Sauron. And he kind of is like, "I wanted to stay in Numenor. Right? You saved me on the raft. I didn't want to go to the Southlands. You made me do A, B, C, D, and E. This is all your fault."
It's true.
Which is brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
Because it plays into the, Galadriel's this vengeful kind of warrior archetype. And, if she had just gone to Valinor, none of this would have happened.
Yeah.
So it was very well played by the showrunners.
Well, it's a question I had, because if she had gone to Valinor and Sauron was on that ship, like what was going to happen to him? Wouldn't he die?
I mean, I'm sure he would have landed somewhere, but I think he would have tried to keep himself hidden. Here's the thing: is Sauron was never going to keep himself hidden forever. Like he just doesn't have it in him to live a simple life. It's just not who he is. But eventually he would have run into some sort of land or died, maybe.
So it was kind of by chance they ran into each other, but then he obviously had to see this as an opportunity, and he kept kind of playing it out, and it kept playing into his favor, and he just kind of let it happen to an extent.
And that's pretty true to the lore as well, as Sauron's the biggest opportunist out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That guy piggybacks his way to some success quite often.
I think what's hard for like the middle line person that's seen the Lord of the Rings, that's maybe read the books, like a person like me, is my viewpoint of Sauron is just he's either the eye or he's this big bad warrior that doesn't look like a human being or acts or probably feels like a human being. So seeing Sauron be a in human form, have emotions and such, it's hard for me to wrap my head around, which I'm liking it, but it's hard to, because I think I look at Sauron as someone that's very black and white. It's wants evil, destruction, takeover, warrior thing, and this other side of it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, which is fun for me to kind of dive into that, but it's hard for me to wrap my head around.
Yeah, and a lot of that's kind of deep lore stuff, because when we see Sauron in Lord of the Rings, we're seeing endgame Sauron. He's lost his ability to kind of shapeshift into his fair form, they call it. At this point, he's just fed up with everybody. So he's just out for blood. And in the Second Age, like JJ was saying, it's a different Sauron in a lot of cases. So I really like what they've done with it. and his whole character and his whole story. It's awesome. And yeah, I mean, I had my own problems a little bit with the show, but I was thinking about it, and I was like, I bet it's just the showrunners being nervous. They're tackling Tolkien, and they know it's going to get ripped to pieces. And so anytime I was thinking about this the other day, and I went back and watched a couple episodes, I was like, I bet they were just scared out of their mind. And we see these little blips or these little hiccups that don't make sense or don't connect.
Well, so they just did an interview. You should go read it. They just did an interview after the season ended where they talked a lot about, and the one thing to their credit, like they knew going in, people were going to shit on the series because you can't. Now, look, I'd like to say that us Tolkien fans aren't the same as some of my other fandoms that I'm a part of.
Star Wars.
Like Star Wars.
Brutal.
Where it's, yeah, I mean, they can be super, yeah, it's toxic and it's ugly and it's gross. I don't think Tolkien fans that are as bad, but I think there's an element just like with all of them. And because I've seen some YouTube videos and articles and comments that I'm like, you guys are weird. Like this was a good show. Like it was interesting. And they said, we knew we were going to have people that hated it. He goes, and all we were trying to do was find a way to balance the people that liked it and people that were with people that knew what they were talking about, kind of knew what they were watching and didn't know what they were watching really at all. He goes, and to do that, we had to make some changes and we had to make some truncations. We had to make things a little different. And he specifically mentioned the Halbrand thing versus Anatar. He said, there's certain things we want to try to keep some intrigue to this show, but you just don't know. Right. So I think to your point though, Alec, I mean, you could tell that they were like, yeah, we understood the massive weight of what we were doing, and so we just decided we were going to do what we were going to do and hope that it worked out. So I respect it, and like I said, I enjoyed the show. I thought it was really cool.
Once I had my timeline question answered, I enjoyed it too. Those first couple episodes, I took a steaming dump on it, but
yeah, I was pretty mad.
After they let me know what was going on, I was like, okay, I can get behind this, and it ended really well.
Yep, I liked it. I will say there's a couple things I'm looking forward to. They kind of hinted at the Black Numenorians, which I'm very intrigued by. And seeing the only thing I'm not a huge fan of, and this is nitpicky as hell, is I don't yet understand why they gave Elendil a daughter that didn't exist in the books anywhere and how she's going to play into this. I mean, I'm sure she'll be a foil for Elendil himself and the queen. Regent, but I don't know. There's a lot of things that are left over on the Numenor side, but I'm really excited that we have now that division, and we'll probably see some of the black Numenorians, which with the sigils that were hanging from the boat, I thought that was great. I got really excited. I was like, I don't know what that is. So
sorry, why are you excited for?
Numenor is going to have a civil war.
Yeah,
it's probably where second season.
Okay, because I could see they showed that the politician that clearly he did not look happy, and it seemed like even me, I could start to see there was a divide, but I guess that's written in that there's a civil war, which sounds dope.
Yeah, it is. It's really cool, really cool. So,
and what about Isildur? Is he just going to stay underneath the hut the entire time?
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised they didn't at least
in Mordor.
I thought we would have gotten like a little flash hint or something. But there's something, Jay, where we don't know where he's at, so that's a reveal and such. But yeah, I thought we were gonna get like anything, but
I thought we'd get at least something. You know what I mean? But who knows? But yeah, I mean, that's the one thing about Isildur is, I mean, we know he comes back. So unless you're going to mutilate the canon, we know he comes back. So there's a difference between tweaking it a little bit and
changing it.
Maybe he's going to get tougher.
Off of freaking
he's going to get tougher in the wilderness because right now he's a pussy.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Charles sent us one last question. I think it's a great one for us to use for us to wrap up talking about Rings of Power, and then we can jump into House of the Dragon. So here it is. Charles, curious what y'all thought of the season overall. If you'll be rewatching season 1 a few times before season 2 drops. Latest news is, this was going to come out too. Season 2 might not be out till 2024. That was another thing that was in that article that with the interview is that they talked about they haven't even started production on season 2. so it's probably going to be a Westworld type situation where we're a couple of years between seasons instead of 1 year. I'll start and then let's just go around the horn. I overall really like the season. I thought there was I'm with Alec. Once I understood the timeline ish and the fact that they were going to truncate and keep everything similar, but make some changes for television and for the sake of storytelling, I was okay. Then I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm interested to see where Galadriel goes. I think they've set up based on this whole Sauron and her having this realization that she's been helping Sauron this whole time. Even though her goal at the beginning was to destroy Sauron, like that's been her whole thing this whole season. It makes sense to me as a way for her to become the Galadriel we know in the books in the trilogy, where she says, look, I don't want to screw up like that again. So I'm going to just rule as an elf queen. I'm going to create Lorien, whatever it might be. I'm sure we won't get that right out of the gate, but I can see where that leads us down that road over the next 4 seasons that they have planned. Yes, I will probably I've already started rewatching season 1 because I was curious once the reveal of Sauron and Halbrand. I wanted to see what I missed because they talked about the fact there were tons of hints that throughout, and already in the first 3 episodes, I'm like, holy shit, like there's a lot that I was like, damn, I should have figured that out subconsciously. There were so many damn hints. So I'm excited. So yeah, I'll probably watch it, finish rewatching it as I have been, and then I'll probably watch it like I do Westworld before it starts up whenever season 2 is released. So that's me. Mattson, what about you, buddy?
Yeah, I read my mind. I'll go. We can bookend it with our resident LOTR nerd. For me, you've already heard it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I don't know as many of the deep cuts and things, but it's cool to see some characters that I knew to an extent, but also in a very different way. And then characters like Halbrand, that's supposed to be Anatar and such, that had no idea who they were going to be, but a character like, as I just talked about before, Sauron, that I know motivations and some things, but the backstory is just extremely intriguing to me. I'm really excited about Adar, who we haven't really talked about, that obviously wasn't part of this last episode, but I'm very excited to see how that rolls in, how Sauron Halbrand like overtakes the Southlands, aka Mordor, what that looks like. Was that part of the plan, or is, as you guys talked about, Sauron's very opportunistic and realizes, hey, this fits what I'm trying to do. Sweet. I'm excited. Visually appealing. The music was great. The acting was top notch. One of the best TV shows, especially for a first season, that I can think of really ever. I mean, there's, as you talked about, so many, just such high standards for this show, even for someone like me that knows enough about Lord of the Rings. Wasn't sure if it was going to be that good, and they really delivered. I'm excited about season 2. I definitely will rewatch this. I'm not going to go back and rewatch it right now. We watch enough things right now that I will wait, and definitely when season 2 does come out, unfortunately, maybe not until 2024, which is far away, I'll definitely rewatch for sure.
Sweet. All right, Alec, bring us home.
All right. Well, that makes 3 that enjoyed it. Overall, it was pretty good. I do think that if they're going to do like a 2-year gap in between shows like Westworld, they have to up their game. This isn't as good as Westworld, in my opinion. But it is their first season. They were tackling a monumental task of, trying to build on Tolkien's works. Left a lot of questions unanswered for me personally. Like, is the Balrog actually awake, or is he still sleeping? What's going on with the elves and trying to stay? Are the rings going to be enough? What are they planning there? And then why is Gandalf going east? You don't go east in Middle Earth. So a lot of little questions for me. So I'm excited for, season 2 to hopefully answer them. I am a little bit concerned, I guess, that they did so much in season 1 that now we may not get, more of like Durin and the dwarves until the end of season 2 or maybe even season 3, because they have so much storytelling that they have to do now. So I'm excited for it. I'm looking forward to it. I will be watching it again multiple times before season 2 drops. So, yeah.
Shoot, I hope we just get a spinoff of Durin and the dwarves, because that whole story intrigues me.
Hilarious. Loved it. Yeah, there was a lot. Like, we didn't even really touch on, like, we talked about Gandalf and we talked about that piece of it, but we didn't really talk about Nori. I liked the way that their story ended too, and then we didn't, of course, talk about Durin because we didn't see the dwarves in this episode. But yeah, lots to talk about. And I didn't even think about going east. You don't go east. That's not where you go.
Yeah,
in Middle Earth. So
why is that? Because there's nothing to the east.
That's where all the cults of Mordor, Morgoth, and Sauron.
Oh yeah, I'm thinking about it. Yes.
Easterlings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Gandalf doesn't even have a name over there, so
yeah. What's the place? I don't even remember the name of the
Rune.
That's right, Rune. Yeah, it should be interesting. It's not a fun place to be, the East.
But it's cool because we haven't seen it before.
It's true.
So I'm excited to see it.
One other, is Legolas alive in this second age?
Mm-mm.
No, he does. He isn't born until third age.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I did like that we saw the wood though. What's the greenwood?
Greenwood.
I was like, yay, that's awesome. Anyway. Yeah, well, there it is. That's Rings of Power. Season's over. That's 2 shows we don't have to watch next week. I don't know what we're gonna do. We're
so much free time.
Take a nice break for a minute for some of this stuff. But we're. But this one I'm actually sad to see go. Unlike She-Hulk, where I was like, thank God. This one I'm actually sad. I wish we had another 1 or 2 episodes left in it. But overall, really good. But now it's time to shift gears. Stick with us if you've been watching live. Hang out. We're gonna move over and start talking about House of the Dragon. So keep that in mind. We're gonna do the little video to transition through for editing purposes, and when we edit these down to single videos. But Charles, thank you for tuning in, buddy. He says thanks for your words of wisdom, Kona. God, I can't believe I wore this shit. Anyway. It's too hard to take off in like the 15-second video that we're gonna play, so I'll still be in it for House of the Dragon. But before then, I think it's Alec's turn. Alec, tell everybody where they can find us, man.
Thank you for tuning in to the season finale of Rings of Power. We will be back with season 2 in 2024. Yes, we will still be around. In the meantime, we are still going live for Andor on Thursdays at 5 p.m.
Pacific.
So tune in there for more wackadoodle content. We appreciate the support of our wonderful listeners, and the best way to help us grow the channel and corrupt more innocent bystanders is liking the episodes and commenting where you can. We are on every major platform except for OnlyFans, but if you want us to set up one of those, feel free to slide in our DMs. Lastly, most importantly, thank you to our amazing patron, JJ Screaming Goats.
That's right.
Your mother was a hamster and your father smelt of elderberries, but we still love you. If you guys enjoy the content we put out and would like to more directly support us, you can find us on Patreon, and by joining there, you too can be a recipient of slightly insulting yet hilarious callouts. What was your verdict on Rings of Power? Let us know in the comments below. Back to you, JJ.
Sweet. Thanks, Alec. With that, we appreciate you tuning in. We'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Cinemagic out.
Whoa!
Welcome to the What's Up Verdict podcast, where we fashion ourselves television judge and jury. My name is JJ Crowder. I'm here with my co-hosts Mattson Heiner,
better read than dead,
and Alec Burgess.
Let's get it.
And yes, I am still in this ridiculous get up. Thanks for that, Charles. But we're here to talk about House of the Dragon, season 1, episode 9. We're almost to the finale of that show next week.
Oh snap! Is it not the? I wasn't sure. Oh man. It just gets better. I thought we had come in with hitting a home run at the end. I mean, I was jazzed.
We were done.
Oh yes, that makes me happy.
No, you got one more, dude.
Oh yeah. I'm really happy about that. I'm glad like it's that moment when you wake up at like 3:30 a.m. and you think it's like, oh man, I got to get up in like 15 minutes. You're like, damn straight, I got like 4 more hours of sleep to go.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep,
Let's
you got
go.
a whole nother hour of House of the Dragon, buddy.
Oh man, what an episode!
That was good. It was
really good. This show is just kind of ramped up.
Yeah.
In the last 3 or 4 episodes, kind of had a little bit of a slow little start going for it, but it just Hit the
Hell
gas.
yeah, dude.
Yeah.
I'm assuming this episode, as I'm watching more of Game of Thrones OG, this is like quintessential Game of Thrones at its finest, I feel like.
Yeah, it was. And, just like Charles says about you, Mattson shot out of a cannon. This episode definitely shot out of a cannon. It was like, yeah. So Game of Thrones episode 9. I don't know how far you are in yet, Mattson. Of OG.
I'm at what, episode 5 or 6? Who's the short dude? I'm forgetting his name. The short little royal guy.
Tyrion.
Yeah, they just accused him like of Stark's wife. Just said like, "Yo, it's happening."
Gotcha. Ooh, yeah, that's a good episode. So, the 9th episode in the Game of Thrones OG is always like bonkers, like batshit stuff happens every time in season episode 9. As long as there's 9 episodes or more. So 7 and 8, not so much.
That's why the two last.
It's okay. I won't be watching those, as JJ told me.
Yeah,
so.
That's good call. But before that, when you get to episode 9, it's good. So yes, it fits with typical Game of Thrones. I loved the civil war within the coming civil war that we had here. Like, you had Greens against Greens vying for power by trying to find this knuckleheaded kid before the other. Because one way or another, this thing's going to get ugly, or it's going to get slower ugly. You know what I mean? Like, if Allison doesn't get him, then Otto's going to escalate this shit quick. He's going to go in. He's already said, we're going to Dragonstone. We're going to wipe him out. If Allison gets it, she's going to try to sue for peace and do it the right way, which is true to the source material. And I appreciated, like, this whole vie for Aegon wasn't as detailed and things like that, but they definitely talk about the fact that they were going to try to do it in a peaceful way, but they did it all sneaky and shit. Like, locked everybody in the tower. They made sure that nobody was leaving. And so it was definitely on point for how a lot of that went down. Is it bad of me?
I thought when they put the servants and stuff down there in the dungeon, I thought they were killing them all. I thought they were all dead.
That's pretty true for Game of Thrones.
I know. I was like, I thought they were all going to die. The other thing I got wrong is the two brothers, the knights. I thought Cheese and what, JJ, those dudes?
Oh, Blood and Cheese.
I thought I was like, this might be Blood and Cheese. Like, this could be going down now. Obviously, it wasn't. We'll talk about them later, but I was wrong.
Yeah. Charles brings up a good point too, though. Poor Lord Beesbury at the small council.
Dude, I was gonna bring that. Charles, for once we're in sync. I love you this episode. Probably never again. I mean, like, is Sir Christian on steroids? Like, I didn't know you could push a man. Granted, this dude's probably like 75, old and brittle, like peanut brittle. But man, he died a very ugly death, and you just have to continue on with that. Meaning that is an HR violation.
Yeah. Well, here's the crazy piece. So, in the source material, in the book, he doesn't die that way. Kristen Cole slits his throat, like slices his throat. He's like, nope, just sit down, and then cuts his throat. And then they sit there the whole day. They're in that chamber the entire day.
How does he get away with that stuff?
Because it was going to happen.
I mean, I guess everyone else in that room was pretty much fine with it, because if he's not going to go along with it, they're probably going to have to kill him anyways.
Yeah, I mean, he was dead regardless. The instant he spoke up against the rest of the council, he was toast.
Damn. So Christian's got a problem.
Yeah, Kristen Cole's a dick. For sure.
Yeah, but what's his name? Westernling?
Dude. Yeah, that dude was dope. I'm done.
Stone cold.
Yeah, loved it.
He was like, I'm the Kingsguard. I take orders from the king. Call me when you have one.
Yep, loved it.
Good. Wouldn't they just kill him, though?
Who's gonna kill him?
Wow.
The Kingsguard is typically like one of the foremost swordsmen in the kingdom.
Fair. I mean, I feel like most people also would be in the army would be loyal to him to an extent. Like, it'd be hard to get someone really like.
He's respected, so yeah, and no fight's gonna be a sure thing. So it's convincing whoever you want to kill him that they should put their life on the line to do so.
Yeah. And there's not a lot to him. Like, they kind of gave him more a cooler out, because in the book all they talk about is his death. That's the only mention to him in the book is his death. And it's so they've given him a bigger role, even though it's not really big, but he gave him this F yourself moment, which I thought was really cool because he was very respected. That's one of the other things that they talked about.
We all need to wear capes now, so when we do protest or leave our jobs or whatever, like we actually have something to leave behind. Because right now it's like my keyboard. That's not as cool.
That's fair, and usually it's their keyboard. So
yeah, like send it back, you dick.
Yeah, exactly. That keyboard cost us $25, bitch.
That's my defiance. I'm keeping it. You know what? I'll pay the fine. Let me ship you. You know, in fact, instead of the keyboard that I put in, I'm putting in a cape and saying "F you."
There you go. I like it. I like it. Yeah. So I really enjoyed. And to your point, Mattson, Eric and Eric, that's their names, Eric and Eric. I liked that split and how they showed that split between the two of them. One just being fed up with all the bullshit because everybody knows Aegon sucks. Like,
well, yeah, they must have. He's got bastard children and all that. What he's doing, yeah, clearly they gotta know.
Yeah. And he's down there watching these like 10-year-olds fight. They oh man, what a messed up piece of deal there. But yeah, he's a dick. And so I liked that it was, look, not everybody's for, and I think that's really tantamount to why this civil war happens, why this big fight happens, because there's not really any good choices that are going to not be argued, because based on how they've presented Rhaenyra in the show, I think she'd make a great queen. However, we've also seen some sides of her that might make her not such a great queen all the time. Not to mention she's got Daemon in her ear, and that dude's as cool as he is. As much as I love Daemon, he's a dick. So it's not like we have choices that are really great on either side, but both sides have arguments as to why they should be where they are. And so it's really interesting to see how it's all playing out. So to pull off a whole episode in the Red Keep was cool as shit to me.
Alec, I want to hear your thoughts.
Oh, I loved it because this is a coup. And it's so funny because they know it's a coup. That's why they're doing everything in secret. But at the same time, they're trying to be like, oh, yeah, it was the king's dying wish. Now, nobody leave. Nobody tell anybody. Hush, hush, while we put, Aegon on the throne. And so it takes away their one valid argument that Viserys said that he wanted Aegon, right, to be king after you died, because they're doing everything behind closed doors and in secret.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it. I love the political intrigue. I love the backstabbing. And I love the fact that the Flea Bottom is getting involved. Flea Bottom's such a cool place.
Yeah. Well, and it was interesting that they pulled out the White Worm, and that's a big add and a lot more addition to the story. It was interesting. Here's a good point that Charles brings up. Was anyone surprised where the White Worm was keeping Aegon under an altar? It's interesting. Yeah, an altar of the seven. Very well. Well, and here's the thing. Okay, so you got, what's her name? The daughter, Aegon's wife, that I can't think of her name right now. Like Helena, yeah. So she keeps repeating this phrase that there's a monster under the floor, or a monster under a
beast under the floorboards.
Beast under the floorboards. There are so many references to that. You have Aegon under the altar, right? Which technically would still be below the floorboards in that situation. You have later on at the end, you have Rhaenys and her dragon come out from the floorboards. You also have future, for her especially, blood and cheese come out from under the floorboards. So there are her reference to Kyle, our good friend Kyle. He not only does he relate to your red hair situation, Mattson, but he's a fellow Ginge. But he also corrected the beast there. And yeah, she keeps saying this, and there's so many references, and I love the way that they've tied all of these things to where you're like, what does she mean? And then there's just these things that keep popping up.
Because she's supposed to be a dreamer, right?
Yeah, they've kind of hinted she was in the book. All they did was talk about the fact that she was nuts, like she was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs,
which she is.
But they didn't. So what they're doing in the show is, but again, and I've mentioned this almost every episode, it's really not a trusted narrator. There's 3 of them in the book that you're getting the story from. So it's not a trustworthy narrator in any situation. So I love the fact that they're taking this and putting it from different perspectives, even from the book, but still sticking, because she had all sorts of things that she would say that were a little weird and nobody knew what the hell she was talking about. So turning her into one of these Targaryen dreamers and having it be, she could be talking about any number of things or all of them. You know what I mean? Because she says it in different ways too. She like says it all scared. She says it freaked out. She says it calm and collected. She even says it to her mom when her mom's trying to figure out where the hell Aegon's at. So it's like, it's just an interesting way that they're using that one line, "There's a beast under the floorboards," to kind of tell multiple angles of story. But let's talk about Rhaenys while we're at it. What a dope ass moment. Now this, I'm going to say this and then I'll let you guys talk. I've been talking a lot this episode because this episode's awesome as hell. This to me, so we talk a lot about, and I say this all the time, where you didn't earn something, right? They earned an ending here. And that is, Rhaenys had every reason to freaking smoke that dais, right?
Oh, yeah.
No. In fact, most people are like probably asking, why the hell didn't she burn everyone up there? But because and I saw it immediately as a mother who has lost all of her children, who's earned through a great conversation, a respect, albeit a thin respect, a level of respect for Alicent, decided that she, as a grieving mother and someone that's been tortured in so many ways, was not going to do that same thing to Alicent, no matter how much it would honestly help the cause that she obviously has decided she's obviously chosen. So to me, they earned every second of that moment. And I went, I don't agree with it. I would have burnt the shit out of everyone on that dais, but I understand why she made that choice. And I'm not mad about it because I get it. I'm kind of like Charles. I feel like it was a great mic drop scene. So anyway, I'll let you guys talk for a second, but I loved that moment.
As a support of the common folk, really felt bad for the populace over there. Just like I think that's the forgotten part. Is like 10,000 people died in a matter of seconds or something. Felt bad for them, but and JJ, I think you're right, because you watched the after show, like their little like deep dive afterwards, and they talked about that comment, and it would have made it. In the other ways, it would have just kind of ended what we're watching to an extent as well. So I'm like, well, yeah, let's not barbecue. I'm like, I want to see this fight and play out and whatnot, but I think she's prolonging their misery to an extent. So is she really saving them at the same time, or could bring them justice and mercy a little bit earlier with a quick death? But I can see the respect and the motherhood behind that decision. And yes, quite the mic drop moment, because I thought we were done. I thought that was the season. So I might be in for a little bit of a letdown with episode 10 here.
Maybe. I doubt it though. I doubt it. I don't know. It depends on how far they go.
What about you, Alec?
Well, I'm in the same boat. I would have torched them, but I think I differ because I would have torched them, then took the Iron Throne, because I have a pretty good claim to it, and I just took it by conquest. So when I was watching this, with my demented mind, I thought she let them live so that she would join Rhaenyra, kind of whittle down the numbers a little bit, break off, and now make her claim to the Iron Throne once there's less competition for said throne. Because if she takes him out there and she takes the Iron Throne, or if that's her ultimate goal still, because she has a very, very good claim to it, then she's still got to deal with Rhaenyra. But if you let, the enemy of my enemy is my friend, let them do their whole Civil War thing, kill each other off, then you just swoop in and take the prize.
Yeah.
But does she want to be a queen at this point? I thought she said she'd come to, she literally says in this season that she'd come to peace with it.
which is what you would say if you hadn't.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but yeah, like
I think she was fine. I think all of her torment. I think she found, and again, this is to my point that I say that they earned it. Is I think she found some level of what she was looking for at the Driftmark with her kids, and then now with her granddaughters from Lena. So I think there is a level of that, but I also think that Kyle's right on point here, and he says I think she was torn on what is right, so she'll allow it to play out the crown to the winner.
That and I think is the best said. Yeah,
I agree. The problem is, and I won't go too far into this, but man, she should have torched them. It's knowing what I know, she should have torched them all. And that's the unfortunate part for me is I know where this is going, and I know shit's gonna get uglier.
That's the worst because you can't do anything to stop it.
Yeah, no, yeah, it's terrible. And so, but it's interesting because I don't know how far they're gonna go. So we saw in the preview her sons, Rhaenyra's kids, saying, "Let us go," and I'm like, "Don't let them go." So I'm curious to see how far they'll take it this next in 10 to see where are we going to get this big. I think there's things that they're not going to, I don't think they'll go too far. I think it'll be setting up the situation to start early. I think next season, I admit I was wrong on the whole weird seasons where you have different timelines and whatnot, thinking maybe they go back to tell the Conqueror story. Maybe they will at some point, but I think we're full on deep into the Dance of Dragons next season, which I cannot wait because it's crazy.
So I have a question at the end right before the dragon pops out with Aegon, who clearly did not want to rule, didn't feel loved by his father, who didn't give him the time of day, but then he sees the crowd, they're accepting of him, and then he like fist pumps the sword, and it seems like his emotion starts to change and realize like, hey, like, I mean, I think like all people, when a lot of people are saying that they like you, then you're like, oh, like, cool. I'm about this. Like, you know what? Maybe I do want to do this thing. I'm just curious what you guys thought about that, because it seemed like he started as like, oh, like, I'm going to do this, and this is okay with me now.
Yeah, I like the way that they played it, especially where they made him such a little shithead the whole rest of the season once he even like jerking off in the window and like the whole thing with the girl in his chambers. I mean, the guy's an ass. And so I like the way that it was part of the reason he was such an ass is because he was acting out, because he had nobody that he thought cared about him. And I appreciate that. I think you're still quit being a dick, but I get it. And so having that one thing and all that appreciation that he's been looking for gives him hope. I want to be king now because this gives me exactly what I've wanted from 10,000, 20,000, whatever, the whole kingdom, right? So, Charles, we'll get to that in a minute. Let's let the adults finish talking first. No. But I did like that. In fact, I actually liked it better than the way that they play Aegon taking over in the book, because in the book he just gets this speech that makes him feel like, look, this is my responsibility, because Rhaenyra is a terrible person, because he didn't care in the book. Because they actually, the one thing that they've played up in the show more than they even do in the book is the contentious nature of all the relationship with the kids and the adults. Like, the kids had issues. I mean, literally cutting the dude's eye out, but at the same time, they actually they got along for the most part, other than when they had spats, it was ugly. But so it was an interesting thing, but he didn't want it in the book either. But I like the way that they played him on this one. So, all right.
I was hoping Aemon would get to be king.
Yeah.
Stick your brother on a boat. He wanted to go.
I know. Well, and that's another twist that isn't in the book. Like, that's not something, and I like that, because I like the Aemon character as much as he's a dick too. I like him because I get he was tortured as a kid, made fun of, and he's like, screw this. And he has his little glow up, and he's got this badass dragon. Yeah, I like that. So I appreciated that.
He's like another Aemon.
Yeah. Yeah, he's like Daemon Jr.
Or sorry, Damon. That's what I meant to say. Damon. Yep.
I knew what you're saying. All right, here we go, Charles.
Of course, Charles would say this.
Anyone else surprised by Laeris' foot fetish scene? Where's that storyline going? Hopefully that's the end of that storyline. But it didn't surprise me at all. I wasn't expecting it, but once it started, like at first I was like, why is she put? Oh, I was like, now I know why she's taking her shoes off. And then I went, ooh, what a twisted fetish, but it's not far-fetched to believe that that would be there based on his ailment. So I was like, uh-oh. But it was cringe. Like,
It could have been worse though.
Oh, it could have been way worse. But it was cringe. I was like, oh, that's creepy. But I mean, you do what you got to do, right? Like
Yeah, I'm not gonna say what I'm imagining. Yeah.
Please do.
Yeah.
No.
We've already talked edging on this podcast.
Yeah.
When you say it could have been worse,
so far
like
off the rails.
Game of Thrones, so I'll give it props for the House of Dragons. They've kept things from a sexual perspective pretty PG.
Yeah, it's not been well. I mean, here you go. The gingers are together. You ready? I almost puked. I'd rather take a bath in acid than see that again.
Kyle, thank you damn very much. Because if this was OG Game of Thrones, we would have seen some things we didn't need to see.
That's fair. I will say that, yeah, those guys.
Like, just because you can show us something doesn't mean we need to be shown it.
I'm with Kyle on this, though. Feet are gross. And Charles has a point when he says, was it ginge cringe? How is it that
Charles, I feel like I need to trademark that phrase now, and I don't like that's exactly what I'm going to say with Pink Flamingo, whatever that stupid movie I have to watch.
Oh, yeah, ginge cringe. I love that. That's going to be we are copywriting that particular phrase.
Kyle, you're my new favorite. I didn't know Kyle was a listener, but I guess I should have known this, but I'm liking Kyle.
Yeah, he gets on the YouTube. He's a buddy of mine from way back, like way back. So he was the first kid I called Red.
Charles, last episode, the Lord of the Rings one, the Rings of Power, that's the only one I've probably been positive about you. So we're back to our usual.
It's right back to normal. Oh shit, I love it. Yeah, I want to talk so much about what I'm excited for, but I can't because I'll give things away, and I'm not willing to do that.
Don't ruin it.
There is a lot of exciting stuff coming in this show. And I think, like I said, I was very skeptical starting because of the way that the last 2 seasons of Game of Thrones, I was pissed. And I swore that I would not give this show a chance. But especially the last 3-4 episodes have really won me over. It took a minute to get there, but I'm all in. I'm worried that one of the main show writers, Sapoknik, is not coming back. But I think as long as the one showrunner that's staying keeps with what he's been doing, and they, bring on a good writer, you keep George R.R. Martin involved, I really think that this can continue to be a really cool show. It's really annoying that we have 2 back-to-back shows that have authors that have 2 R's in the middle of their damn name. I almost said J.R.R. Tolkien instead of George R.R. Martin.
That would have been terrible.
Oh, are you serious? Kyle, don't ruin my freaking night. Late 2024 for season 2. Gross.
What is this for House of the Dragon?
Yeah, that's House of the Dragon? So shit balls. That's like Westworld. Had to be so good that they make everybody go, we're going to wait 2 years in between seasons.
We're going to be through She-Hulk season 24 by the time that comes back around.
They did announce She-Hulk season 2 today.
Gosh. So question, JJ. The Great Sept of Baelor, or whatever, keeps getting destroyed. At what point are the people of Westeros going to realize that the 7 are false gods?
Actually, where we were at the end of this was not the Great Sept of Baelor.
It wasn't?
That was the Dragon Pit.
Wow.
So,
dang it.
Yeah, the Great Sept of Baelor is much taller than that. It's domed. They're both domed, but yeah, that was the Dragon Pit. So that's why she snuck down underneath. The dragons are underneath that. So that was the Dragon Pit. And that actually we know does get destroyed and doesn't come back. So I don't know if they're hinting that that's the start of this destruction, because I have to look it up. I don't remember when the actual Dragon Pit gets toasted. And that's where Alec, you'll know this. Anyone that's watched all of all the seasons of Game of Thrones, that's where they have the meeting at the end of season 8. The couple of those meetings is the broken Dragon Pit. So that's where they were for that announcement. versus the Great Sept of Baelor. The Great Sept of Baelor, I don't even know. Is it? I'd have to look to see if it's created yet. I don't know that Baelor has been king yet. I think I know Maegor the Cruel has, but I don't know that Baelor has. So I'd have to look that up. So
Just
there might not even be
names.
a Great Sept of Baelor yet. But yeah, that was a dragon bit. All right, Charles got a. I do think Mattson has a good point. The episode, it really ended on a wow moment. I hope JJ's right. That episode will keep the momentum going. Ooh, I'm gonna have to burst
just stroking my ego here. Charles, we're at odds. We're like yin and yang. We're like Sith and Jedi.
Here's the thing, Charles. He hasn't even watched Pink Flamingo yet, so it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, Charles. It's a good thing that episode's for you.
Episode 10, I don't think will be as intense as this. I think you at least not. It's one thing that Game of Thrones, if they stick to the formula that they created with Game of Thrones, there's going to be a huge cliffhanger in episode 10, and it will have a setup moment for season 2. So you'll have some intrigue. I mean, obviously, we're going to see Rhaenyra's side figuring it out. There's going to be some things that really mess with Rhaenyra happen, and then I feel like we'll be on our way. I think if I had to guess, it'll end with Lucerys and with Luke and Jace flying off to go and get allies. Luke eventually goes to get Boros Baratheon's buy-in, and then Jace, I think, goes to Harrenhal. I don't remember where Jace goes, but Jace goes somewhere else. I think you'll see those two leaving to go collect allies, because once that happens, you're not far off from the actual Dance of Dragons starting. So, Charles says, flamingos for you, Mattson. Flamingos for you. Yeah. Cool. Any other thoughts on episode 9?
No, excited for the last one.
Yep.
Yeah, it was good.
Looking forward to episode 10. I'm not looking forward to a late 2024 return of this show, but whatever.
2024 is going to be a good year for TV, JJ.
Yeah, we're going to be busy as shit again in 2024.
Hopefully we're all alive in 2024, dude. So far away.
I make no guarantees.
Could be abducted by aliens.
And I'm wearing and I am like basting in my own juices in this. So thanks for that, Charles. This suit is hot. Cool. Well, that's episode 9 of season 1. We'll be back next week for episode 10. And before we jet out, Mattson, it's your turn. Tell everybody where they can find us.
Kyle, Charles, thanks for chiming in on our live show today to discuss this episode of House of the Dragon. If you'd like to listen wherever a good podcast can be found, we are on all major outlets there, Spotify, Apple, to name a few at What's Our Verdict reviews. My apologies. And our next live show is on Thursday, Andor, at 5 p.m. Pacific Central Time. And we are doing a bunch of kind of Halloween-esque movies this month, but you can check us out on TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram if you want to slide into our DMs, watch some great TikTok content. And we appreciate you taking the time to listen to us. And most especially, if you want to continue to support the podcast, check us out on Patreon at What's Our Verdict Podcast, where you can help recommend some things that we review, watch exclusive trailers that we'll look at, or just make us watch something like Pink Flamingos.
There it is. Thanks, Mattson. Appreciate it. We appreciate you guys tuning in. Yeah. Thanks, everybody that's watched us live. Thanks for the comments. Kyle, Charles, appreciate it. Can't wait to get out of this wizard costume. It is hot, but it's been fun. And with that, as always, we'll catch you on the next one.
Bye.
Cinemagic out.
Whoa!